Hello and welcome to the AI Business Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Nelson, Head of Product at SolvedBy.AI. And today's episode is all about our recent experience at the Hospitality Tech Expo. Had the pleasure of attending alongside our Head of Sales, James Stewart. And today we're going to break down the key takeaways from the event. So the Expo brings together leaders from across the hospitality sector to explore the latest innovations in tech. And of course, AI was front and center there. We had the opportunity to talk with a wide range of attendees and hear firsthand what their needs were and what some of their interests were in exploring AI. So thanks, James, for joining me.
Pleasure. Nice to see you, Laura.
As if we haven't spent enough time together over the past couple of days already.
Indeed.
So we had some really interesting discussions about the trends and the challenges in hospitality businesses and what they're facing right now, and also, of course, about how what role AI is playing in helping them become more efficient, reduce costs, and ultimately increase revenue. So, James, do you want to just kick us off by giving our listeners a quick overview of the Hospitality Tech Expo and why it's an important event for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, we find that going to these events is always going to be the best way for us to talk to our potential customers, but also to get a good understanding of what else is out there in the market and what's important to people. So we're there to not only showcase what we can do for companies across the hospitality sector, but also to understand where other companies are helping these businesses, and also just to see what the lay of the land is. What are people talking about? What are people expressing concerns about in terms of running their business? So it's just really, really powerful for us to be able to hear from people straight out of their mouths what their challenges are, and to understand how we might be able to play a part in dealing with those challenges.
And what kind of people did you find were interested in coming over and speaking to us?
So it was a real range. So we had everything from chief operating officers all the way through to data scientists, students, and all of them have different questions, different needs, and different approaches to challenges that they're facing within businesses, right? So if you're in operations, you're tending to look towards efficiencies, right? Streamlining. If you're in supply chain, it's a lot around predicting what the next big thing is in terms of cutting costs or increasing profitability. And if you're a student or if you're a data scientist, sometimes you're just really, really interested in AI and technology. So it was a real smorgasbord of different types of people, really great conversations. I certainly learned a lot when it comes to some of the challenges that people are facing. It's pretty similar to other areas that we work within. But I would say that it's a real mixed bag when it comes to the levels that we're talking to and the people that we're talking to, which is exciting because, sometimes you might just talk to the same departments, the same people all the time. I think in the world we're now living in, where tech is becoming more and more important, and companies are more open to finding ways that go away from the maybe traditional ways of doing things in order to maximize profitability, in order to make sure that the customer experience is as high as possible, along with loads of other different areas. It's nice to see so many companies and people willing to at least discuss this in a more open way. And I don't think there's a better way to do that than when you actually face to face and on a stand, sharing some ideas.
And as well as that quite sort of cross-section of people and roles, there was within the hospitality sector, obviously, but there was quite a wide range of businesses and different types of operations that came and spoke to us.
Absolutely. So I lost count of how many different avenues we were having to go down in terms of the people we were talking to. We had some huge hotel chains, massive coffee shops, restaurants, everything that you can think of, leisure. It was a real mix. And I think there was a lot of similarities in terms of the challenges they were facing. But one theme tended to be spread across all of the different areas, which is everyone's wanting to know that they're not missing out. That's the one thing that I could say if I was going to give any advice to anyone in the industry is there are so many different products on the market now, so many different ways that you can try and boost efficiencies, try and streamline supply chain, try and optimize sales forecasting, whatever it may be, that understanding and being open to discussion is basically the key. Otherwise, unfortunately, there may be companies that get left behind. So I think that would be my my sort of takeaway from the conversations I had.
And some of those more in-depth conversations then with specific businesses about their needs and what they're interested in exploring around AI. Can you tell me a little bit more about those, particularly some of the conversations you maybe had around efficiency and streamlining and cost management?
Yeah. So I won't say any specific names, but I spoke with so many different companies, but two or three examples leapt out at me. And one was centered around how to maximize space. And in hospitality and leisure and those different areas, that's going to be key, right? You don't want rooms going free when they could be being rented, being taken, have tenants in them or guests in them. You don't want spaces available on classes from a leisure perspective. So I think some of the most interesting conversations I had was if you're running at 80% capacity as a business, as a flat rate across a year, as a good example, how can a business generate another 10% to get to 90% capacity? What's that worth? So if you're £100 million revenue business and you've got 80% capacity, you've still got potentially another several £1 million on the table that could be through potentially better forecasting of sales, having the right promotions available, having the right product available, whether that product be a hotel room or a specific leisure activity or a specific menu that is going to allow more guests to be present at the business. Being able to ascertain that was one challenge that I think most of the businesses I spoke to had, but certainly was key to several. Another would be centered around having the right people in the right place at the right time. It's a challenge that is prevalent across many of the sectors that we work in, but no more so than in hospitality. Okay, having the ability to service a customer and make sure that customer experience is as high as possible. Look, we live in a modern age. All it takes is a few Twitter posts, a few bad reviews on TripAdvisor, and things can start snowballing. So making sure that the client and the customer is satisfied by having the right amount of receptionists or the right amount of staff on, having the right level of chefs available to service a seating restaurant. These are all things that were coming up to me around sort of labor forecasting, for example. So I would say the two main areas that I found were talking about maximizing revenues through more efficient use of space, and whether that was through promotions or other areas, but also more effectively ascertaining whether labor was being effectively used, right? Where is it? When is it? Why is it there? Um, and there are lots of sub challenges that come within that. But I would say those were the two main areas. And if I was going to say one more thing that was brought up to me quite often, was centered around understanding price optimization. Okay. Like a lot of people came up to me and wanted to understand that geographically. So we work with businesses globally, but if you're pricing a hotel in York, you may price it differently in central London. If you're pricing seasonally, you may on Halloween you may price differently to a Wednesday in March. So understanding how to price things more effectively in order to generate more business was certainly something that was brought up to me a lot as well.
And we had some really good conversations around all of those things about the way that we would approach that, which I think a lot of people were really interested to hear about looking at historical data, building forecasts, and then making decisions based off of that. Did you find you had some quite good discussions with people around that as well? People were quite sort of receptive and understanding of that concept?
Look, I mean, data is king or queen nowadays. There's always something you can do with the data at your disposal. And I think businesses are really waking up to that, and they have been over the last several years. So we love data, don't we? Laura, you love data. I less love the data and more like what the data does. But I'd say the businesses that we're speaking to are desperate to leverage that data. And whether that be doing many of the areas that we can help businesses with, whether it be opening times being more effectively utilized, whether it be, like I say, staffing, whether it be prices, sales forecasting. There's so many different avenues you can take utilizing machine learning and AI models. And I think the main advice I could give anyone is, if you have data, if you have a workforce management system, if you have EPOS data, if you have sensors that track footfall into your store, don't just leave it at that and leave it to one store at a time. One thing I've noticed when I spoke to a few people is they don't feel they're as effectively utilizing the data. So if you can take that data and then allow a company like SolvedBy to be able to build you a bespoke forecast that will allow you to understand demand for labor, that can understand which products need to be on the shelf, which dishes need to be served, which prices need to be presented, which promotions need to be run, you're only going to add value to your business. So I would say the main areas that I can see from our perspective where AI can help is centered around building a more effective message to your clients. But you don't need to necessarily do that through any other way rather than giving them what they want and making sure the service is at the level that they expect. And you can do that by just having the right people in the right place and also the right product at the right time. I'd say if I was going to add any line to that, that is probably what I would explain is the most effective way to generate revenue in this industry.
I mean, we saw some pretty cool things, like you were saying, about tracking footfall and using CCTV to track queue management and things like that. But as you say, all of those things are great in terms of gathering lots of data, but it's what you do with that data and it's how you use that data to improve your business, right? Otherwise, what's the point?
100%. I got super excited when a restaurant group came and spoke to me and said that they were looking at partners for camera technology that would allow them to sort of basically monitor footfall, would allow them to also monitor staff, not in a big brother sort of sense, but also understand how many staff are on site at a certain time. What is the most effective way to have staff move through a restaurant to make sure that the service is as efficient as possible? And these are just random things that we discuss. But if I was just thinking from our perspective, if we could take that data and combine that with the workforce management data, combine that with EPOS data, it's another string to our bow, and it's another string to a client's bow, right? This data is their data. Why not utilize it? And if there's other ways to store it that more effectively give a better customer experience whilst also generating revenue and making sure that the employee experience as well, which sometimes I think companies can forget. Sometimes employee experience is really, really important, and if you can boost all of those different areas across these businesses, not only are you going to have happy staff, but you're also going to have better NPS scores, better TripAdvisor scores. You're going to make more money. You're going to be saving money on minimizing wastage, for example. Actually, something I probably should have mentioned earlier, that is another thing that's key. You don't want to be chucking away. If you're a bakery, you don't want to chuck away all your donuts, but you also don't want all your donuts being made in the afternoon, because most people would probably buy them in the morning on the way to work or at lunchtime. So, yeah, there's so many different innovations when it comes to technology. But the main thing is all of those innovations are there pretty much to create more data.
So for anyone listening then who maybe works in hospitality and wasn't able to attend, who's interested in applying AI to their business, what would you say kind of summarize your key takeaways from the expo?
I would say that we're entering a phase within the hospitality industry whereby companies are at the best point to generate as much revenue as they possibly can whilst effectively giving customers the experience they want. I don't think whilst we live in a tough economic climate and that there are challenges, there's more competition everywhere, we've got online offline sources of income. I don't think there's a better chance to utilize data than there is right now. And I would say my takeaways are embrace it, explore it, and make sure that you at least give credence to the idea that AI and machine learning or any of the other technologies that were at the show could help your business. Whether it be globally, whether it be locally, it doesn't matter for size. It can still be utilized.
Fabulous. All right. Well, and if anyone is interested in that, who maybe attended the expo or not, and is intrigued by what we've talked about, how can they get in touch to explore some AI solutions further?
I'm easy to find. You can either get in touch with me on LinkedIn directly. It's James Stewart at SolvedBy.AI, or you can just give us a call on the website, or just drop us an email, and one of myself or the team will get back in touch. We'd always welcome an exploratory call, just to see if we can help.
Fabulous. Well, thanks very much, James. It's been great to debrief on the event and talk about AI and the future of hospitality. So thanks very much.
My pleasure, as always, Laura. Have a good one.
And thanks everyone for listening. If you, as James says, if you found what we talked about today interesting, we'd love to continue the conversation. So please do reach out and get in touch. Until next time, thanks for listening.